Thank you, guys. It's good to see you again. I told Norman, I said, no, some things never change. I mean, the tea bags are in the same place. Norman Park's in the same place. You know, I mean, Napoleon Richard pulls up beside me. I could have predicted that. I mean, this is like, you know, started coming here in 1988 when this place had, what, I don't know, 100 people in it, something like that, when everybody was looking for a job, I guess, at that point in time, and the networking thing was going on. And so I had a long experience here. My ministry's changed a little bit, but I still love you guys, and thank you for the opportunity to stand here in front of you today. I don't know. I'm going to talk about what happens downtown, Norman. You know, they can read about it in the papers. Basically, I wanted to do something a little different than that, if you'll allow me. Norman only got about 80% of that introduction wrong, so you know that's par for the course for Norman. But you know, hey, now, you know, because you got a politician standing up here who's claims to be a Christian. You can still look at him and you know when he's lying, you know, because his lips are moving. So you know, you just take that into account as you hear what I've got to say this morning, what God's directed me to say this morning. I want to talk to you about heroes because I know a lot of heroes, a lot of people who are heroes, either downtown or in national politics or wherever it might be. But I dwelled on this idea, and it comes down to issues that affect each one of us today, and it really affects you too. I want to take you back to a scenario that I find very compelling in my life because I'm a big historian. I believe that if you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it one way or another, and that's an old adage, and that's, I think, absolutely true. Take you back to July 3rd, 1863. No, I was not born at that point in time. I look it, but I wasn't born at that time. It's 5 a.m. The guys are awake, and they're on Seminary Ridge, Gettysburg. They're preparing for battle, but before everything starts, there's supposed to be a coordinated attack, and so a battle starts on the other side of the line, down on Culp's Hill, this fish line that went around Gettysburg, with the north on one side on Cemetery Ridge and the south on Seminary Ridge and over on the Culp's Hill. So it starts over there, and that battle goes on for 6 hours. And they could hear it. These guys could hear it. These guys, when they got up, the saying goes that it was as still as the Sabbath. That was their saying. It was as still as the Sabbath on that line at 5 a.m. in the morning, just before the battle on Culp's Hill starts to go off. And they listen to it. They're there. They're fixing their names on pieces of paper to their blouses, so when they get shot or killed, they didn't have any dog tags, so that somebody would know who they were. And so, you know, and they're digging holes. They're just getting themselves prepared for battle. Later that afternoon, after 6 hours of that, there's a cannonade that starts off. There's 300 guns in the cannonade. It's 1,500 shells per minute are going across that field. This is from Seminary Ridge over to Cemetery and back again. 12,000 men in gray come out of the woods on Seminary Ridge about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's 3 lines of them. And they're going to cover about 1.5 miles to get to the Union lines on the other side, try and break the center of the Union line. Shells kill 10 at a time. You're walking up there, you're in line, all of a sudden 10 guys in your company are gone. The scene that really is compelling to me in this whole scenario is when this line, crossing this 1.5 mile area, gets to the Emmitsburg Road. Emmitsburg Road bisects Gettysburg battlefield like this. Cemetery Ridge over here, Seminary Ridge here, and this Emmitsburg Road bisects it about 300 yards in front of the Union line. It's what's called the angle right now. It's all defended by Ohio troops, Maine troops, Pennsylvania troops, Hancock's Corps. And of course, you got Armstead and whoever's left, Garner and other guys, generals on the Confederate side, moving up in Anderson's division and Pickett's division to attempt the assault. They get to the Emmitsburg Road, but the Emmitsburg Road is kind of interesting because it's a defile. In other words, it's sunk. The road sunk from all the wagon traffic that's been going across this for years. It's sunk. What it does is to provide some protection for these guys. They get up there, and they get in this, and all these lines converge into the Emmitsburg Road defile. And they're only there momentarily. But what's their option at this point in time? What's their option? You're standing there. These guns are going off. They've stopped with the shells. They're loading grape and canister, these shotgun-like blasts into these cannon right now, and you know you're going to have to go out and face that. What's your option at this point in time? What's the option? There's three options, right? Okay, but that's really not an option, right? They're going to kill you one way or another. You do that. You can run, right? What's another option? Charge, and what's another option?
Stay where you are.
And surrender. And surrender. I mean, there's three options. You can do one of the three. To a man, they all got up and charged the angle. Armstead in the lead, sword out in front, his hat on the sword, and they almost do it. They almost break through. In fact, there's an incredible hand-to-hand melee at the angle with the Union and Confederate troops. Yeah, I think about this, and I said, boy, what incredible courage. I mean, would you do that? Would you do that? What's the motivation for that? What do you think the motivation is? Why would you do that?
Normally in battle, it's brotherhood.
Okay, so it's a duty to the unit, right? I mean, it's the guy's going forward next to you, so you're going to be part of that. You're going to support that. Another one's kind of a negative one, which is you don't want to be shown to be a coward, right? So you don't want to really run. Maybe there's a higher cause, but I doubt that at that point in time, like a love of country or, the flags out in front and so on and so forth, and you get all caught up in the emotion of the moment and you go up there and do it. But I think you're right, Richard. Primarily, it's the guy next to you. It's the unit, cohesion, and you move forward together. You don't really know for sure, but I'll tell you what, there were a lot of common people, just like you and me, doing incredible acts of valor at that particular, on both sides. Guys grievously wounded, standing to their guns and standing for what they believed to be the cause that they were going to fight for. Now, what's that got to do with us? Well, I just thought it was a nice way to start. I have no idea what's going to, no, really, we'll try and tie this in. I got to talk about Hebrews 11 here a little bit. Hebrews 11, what's Hebrews 11? What's it talk about? Yeah, but it talks about a whole bunch of people, right? It's called God's Hall of Fame, right? And these are all heroes of the faith. If you think those guys were heroes, think about this. I mean, this is a hint as to the motivation that we would have as a unit operating for Christ in the battle for Christ. It says in the 24th verse, chapter 11, it starts and it says, "By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ." Kind of interesting words there, isn't it? Talking about Moses for the sake of Christ. What's that all about? As of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He preserved him. Saul, who was invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and sprinkled blood. So on and so on and so on. Then it goes down to the 32nd verse, and this is kind of interesting, because you find names in here you don't think should be in here, but they are. It's almost like reading down a list of the men of valor at Gettysburg. Who are these people? Why did... It says, "And what more shall I say," in the 32nd verse? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouth of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured, refused to be released, so they might gain a better resurrection. Some faced jeering and flogging, while others were chained and put in prison. They were stoned, they were sawed in two, they were put to death by the sword, they went about in sheepskins, goatskins, destitute, persecuted, mistreated, and the world was not worthy of them. They wandered in the desert mountains, caves, and hole in the ground. They all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what they had been promised. God had planned something better for us, so that only together